At this point in history, I think most people are very aware of how out of control Meta and Zuckerberg behind the wheel at Meta have been for decades, for most of my life, with no shortage of scandal after scandal, Cambridge Analytica being the most well-known, in which they were eventually fined $5 billion for manipulating users by changing user feeds. And for someone that may not understand, they were taking data from everything you clicked on in Facebook, along with some other stuff that was on your phone, like other apps or who knows what else. I mean, this is obvious propaganda on a whole new level. And think about it, Zuckerberg is the type of guy that loves to play chess but doesn't like to lose. So everyone around him allegedly knows that they can play different board games with old Zuckerberg, but they're not allowed to win.
And the way that he likes to pass time is, board games and chatting. And it took me a while to learn that expectation is that you will play and Mark will win.
So when he meets new people and people don't know that they're supposed to let him win, sometimes he's beaten and he becomes extremely confused and upset because he's a sore loser. And those people that end up beating him are scolded and made aware that you can play board games with little Marky Mark, but you're not allowed to win. It really makes me have a wild imagination of what his whole social life is. I mean, like many modern day billionaires, he pays to win and pays to live in his own little world. And he's lived in that world for so long, it really makes me wonder if he even knows he's still there. And what's scary is for us, it's become normal. The human mind is good at adapting. There's been so many lawsuits, allegations, and court orders that we sort of just become numb to it. And all these court orders end up being just a slap on the wrist or even the finger for a giant conglomerate like Meta. And it's like, what can we do but become numb to it? Because they've become so powerful and wealthy, they control so much of the internet in which modern society has become dependent. It's like, what can we do? We might as well not worry about it. Maybe the answer isn't as complicated as it seems. Maybe it's a whole lot simpler. Maybe it's just choosing alternative platforms and not participating in the Meta or Google or Microsoft ecosystem and choosing something else, or at least migrating there. Of course, it would be a lie if I told you it really was that simple, because the truth is it is more complicated. Yes, use another platform, but chances are a lot of those platforms tie back to the conglomerates like Google, Meta, Apple, Microsoft, and so on. Take Google, for instance. In recent years, there's been many alternative search engines that have popped up and do respect user data at least more than Google does. However, most of them still use Google indexing and analytics, essentially acting like a middleman between you and the same provider, Google or Alphabet. Well, a few of these alternatives are building their own indexing in the meantime, and to the most part, they're still relying on indexing by Google. Still, many of these alternatives have better user experiences and filter out many of the bad search results that Google pushes forward, along with giving you many of the wanted features and taking away many of the unwanted features. I use DuckDuckGo or Icasa, or however you say it, and I think both of them have better user experiences. Plus, Icasa is at least giving back to the world in the way taking some of its profits that it makes from advertising to plant trees around the world. It's definitely on my list of stuff I need to research to really give my full thoughts about or how credible it is, but it does make you feel a little bit better about using their services. And it's a good service. But still, it's not about perfection. It's about one day at a time and doing what we can and what makes sense without giving up the power of what social media and the internet and technology has brought us. The key is about being informed isn't to give up your internet presence, it's to understand how and when to use it in the right way. Powerful tools that give you the power to do good in the world and to get your voice heard shouldn't be given up on just because the people that control them may only have certain things in mind. The other problem is, and I think it's the bigger problem, is the users themselves. Yes, us, or maybe not us, the ones that clicked on this video being curious about technology and being more up on the up. I think we forget about how normal people use technology. But the problem is that once somebody is used to a certain service and has been using it for years, it's really, really hard to get them to switch. People get stuck on what they already know. It took years and years for other search engines intelligence to have any chance at all when compared to Google. I mean, that might be just usability, but it's also just getting people to switch. And that's literally just going into your web bar and typing in a different address. I would say the biggest adoption is sites like ChatGPT, and I would argue the reason that more people adopt that is because, well, one, not a lot of older people are, and two, I think it's a totally different style of doing something, so it becomes somebody's first of something, and people get stuck on the platform they started with, probably more likely than not being ChatGPT or Gemini or Microsoft, depending on where they were introduced to it at. The sad truth is, no matter if it's my mom or some other older relative, or even some of my friends that are my age but have been using X/Twitter or Facebook their whole lives, it is extremely difficult, in my experience, to get them to switch. And even if I get them to download the app, they probably won't start using it unless there's a whole bunch of incentive to do so. We've had a bunch of success with Blue Sky and Mastodon, but still, compared to the big guys, they're hardly even mentioned. And really, it's usually teenagers and college students that make or break a platform, and then it sort of spreads up the age gap. But we must still remember that technology, in my opinion, is not the problem. In fact, it's mostly good. Google indexing has changed the world in mostly positive ways, and things like ChatGPT or artificial intelligence in general, I think have potential to change the world in drastically positive ways, but also in drastically negative ways. But that's the main reason I like to stay informed, not because I'm trying to abandon technology and lose the power of the web, but because it allows us to make informed decisions. To know when and when not to use a tool, knowing if it's worth it in what occasion, and if there's any better, more efficient platforms or tools that are available. We need to stay informed enough to fight back, work around the flaws, and find alternatives, and know when alternative platforms pop up, and if there's better tools out there, and discover better platforms as they emerge. When you understand the problems and the risks, you can make an informed decision about whether a platform or tool benefits you enough to make those trade-offs.
Do you think Musk's approach then is from a position of insecurity about XAI?
Probably his whole life is from a position of insecurity. I feel for the guy.
You feel that?
I do, actually.
And when a platform you switch to has started to become the very thing you left, you will recognize it, know the signs, and you'll be able to recognize that too. When you understand the problems and the risks, you can make an informed decision about whether a platform or tool benefits you enough to make those trade-offs. It does seem in the last year or so we've been doing a better job than usual, but we need to keep it up. And still, many of the older people in my life cannot get off Facebook. I have been successful at leaving X, only coming back to communicate with certain individuals I can't talk to any other way, and to do deep research. But when it comes to Meta, it's a whole nother story. I tried to leave, but ended up coming back because there's just too many people I lose contact with when I'm not on the platform. I've realized I have a lot of friends and family I don't communicate with any other way, and it is one of those like weighing out the evil platform and CEO with the power that the platform gives you. I just don't know if it's worth it to lose communication with some of those people. Sure, you can talk them into leaving for another platform, but that's much easier said than done. And when it comes to those other platforms, it becomes a chicken and the egg scenario. For instance, I love Skylight Social, but there's not a lot of people on there. It's not really like TikTok yet. I do see a bright future, but right now it's not TikTok and it's hard to get people to move over. Now, when it comes to Google, I'm completely addicted. My default search engine is usually DuckDuckGo. However, being a video editor and being a YouTuber, I am stuck in the ecosystem. Everyone uses Google Drive, Gmail, and the likes, right? I mean, I'm completely addicted to YouTube if nothing else. It's hard to get de-Googled. But again, it's not about being perfect. It's about one day at a time, trying to do the best you can with the information you got, and going in eyes wide open. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that it's up to us. If we don't give them attention, well, then they don't have a platform. If we don't give them money, they don't have a platform. But there's no question these guys are huge. They've built giant networks, and it's hard to replace that. There's been so many other great platforms to emerge, like Proton, like pCloud, and Starlight Social, Blue Sky, Mastodon, and the list goes on and on. But if you can't convince the average person your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, the people that aren't tech savvy, the people that aren't into politics, the people that are into technology, other video editors, studios, whatever the case may be. If you don't get the masses to adopt a new platform and a singular platform so that everybody can communicate. I mean, when it comes to open protocols, they could probably just pick one of the open protocols and then we could learn to communicate, but that's besides the point. You still got to get them to switch. But I guess in closing is that we've made insane progress, farther progress than a lot of people thought was possible in such a short amount of time. So we're doing great, but we have a lot of work ahead of us. Please tell me what you think in the comments. If you've enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Like the video, it really helps trying to grow the channel, obviously. Please subscribe for more. I have a whole bunch of stuff coming and going. I moved a bunch of stuff from a different channel back onto this channel. I've done that several times. I don't know. This is the cumulation of Sean's brain, I guess. So go ahead and like, subscribe, and I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you in the next live, but hopefully in the next video.